the ones she's standing there over there.
The government is encouraging the Botswana people to go forward and trying to be in the society also. That we young ones, as like I remember when I was in Japan, the president, when we shake the hands, he's saying that he's very happy to see a young lady like me to own a lodge in Botswana.
Mapula Lodge, good day.
Tiny Hansen feels that Myra Motswe's being self-employed is inspiring to herself and to the next generation in Botswana.
Maramoto, I would say that I wouldn't mind to sit even myself to talk to her, say that how wonderful you show every single young ladies to go forward, even those one behind me. So I admire her.
We have to look, listen and react.
Most of the employees at Mapula Lodge come from the neighbouring villages. Many of these people are San, so-called Bushmen or Basawa. The San are considered to be the original inhabitants of Botswana. The San lived as hunters and gatherers for tens of thousands of years, until the Botswana government encouraged them to settle in the 1980s.
We used to go out for some periods to collect berries, to hunt out there, and just bring back the biltong back home. That could be an interval of maybe spending a whole month out into the bush. And then it was such a hard life for us. Then the government decided, just group yourself somewhere where I can reach you and provide you with some of the facilities. This was 15 years ago.
After local and international protests, the High Court ruled that the San people had the right to return to their traditional nomadic lifestyle, though not all of them want to.
To me, it doesn't sound like it has actually damaged our culture, but to my elder parents, that is what they exactly feel, because they have lived this kind of life for a long time ago, since Stone Age, I should say. So it's not so easy for this kind of life to wipe away from their memories. So it will take them time to get adapted to this new modern life. But to me, as a youth, I've been to school. I also want to live the way this changing world demands me to live. So to me, the changes are just good, but they put a little bit pressure on me because I have to cope with the situation, which is not very simple.
You must understand, said Ma Potkwani, that although it's easy for us to criticize the ways of the Basawa, we should think very carefully before we do that. When you look at the life they lead, out there in the Kalahari, with no cattle of their own and no houses to live in, when you think about that, and wonder how long you and I and other Botswana would be able to live like that, then you realize that these Bushmen are remarkable people.
One way to prevent the San culture and its click language from disappearing is through art.
نس قويس كعباس خاسا خطو كان يخبصر كما كان خسر قويسر قاسيتا ما كما كان خيا تاكو سيتا خسر كما كان خطولي لك كان قاعد سيتا كواسيتا دي مو دي خون خاتين خاتوني دي خون خاتين قاق اكو كروك يسيتا دي كوين كما كان خيا كابا كوري دي كوين خاتينا تا وين تين تخا يتولي لكانا كابا كوري دي كوين خاتان تخسكولي اي كو خسكولين كو خاتاسي اي خبي كو خاتاسي كعبيسي اخا ان مسارو تا دينواون كاسيتي اي اما كيرو خا كوين ان كعبا خاتين غين خاتين ان كعبا كوري كو خاتيرا كما تقوت يا ابو خردوني خا كعبا كويسكو هناسا خان خاكوا إن كعبة كويسة كوا كورو كيكو كعبيسة خان خاتي إن سواوس تكرر كتير ما كرافتان ما هنا إما كم تاني كيجي خوجي تيانا كم
Then we have something we call desert greenhouses. It's a very strong greenhouse built from this type of walls.
Yes.
And then we throw bow greenhouses over there.
That's beetroot.
Today the tour has reached Sanitas, a plant nursery and tea garden. For over 50 years the founder, Gus Nielsen, has sought new ways of making the desert fertile.
But if you look at these trees, you can see how close we have planted them.
Yes, yes.
It's a real experiment, but they're producing so fantastic.
Yes,
Standing
and
there.
it's worked, has it?
But they are standing on so much sand,
Yes, yes.
river sand. The root system is only
That deep.
15 to 20 centimeters.
Isn't that amazing?
So trees don't need much space.
Yeah.
And then we grow grass on the
Here
top there.
is all this growth. And this remarkable man, extraordinary man, had this vision of how this country could be made green. And in this little bit of Botswana, he's done it. He is a hero. Maramaswi would certainly be very interested in coming here. Indeed, over lunch, I was discussing with Gus's wife how we might bring Maramaswi here in the next book. She's got quite a lot to do in Volume 9, but we always have the room for another little mystery. And I was being told that they lost quite a bit of fruit here recently, and they were wondering where this fruit was going, and there was a very interesting resolution of that problem. So Maramaswi will probably work on that case. The climb did not take long, and soon they were standing on the edge of a large expanse of elevated rock, looking down on Machudi, on the church with its red tin roof, on the tiny hospital where the heroic daily battle was fought with small resources against such powerful enemies, and out over the plains to the south. The river was flowing now, broadly and lazily, winding its way past clumps of trees and bush and the clusters of compounds that made up the straggling village. A small herd of cattle was being driven along a path near the river, and from where they stood the cattle looked tiny, like toys. But the wind was in their direction, and the sound of their bells could be made out, a distant, soft sound, so redolent of the Botswana bushland, so much the sound of home. Hello. Hello. Good to see you. How are you? Very well, very well. Nice to see you, Eleanor.
At the village museum in Mochudi, there are exhibits of everyday life in former times. Alexander McCall Smith often returns here to seek inspiration for his books.
It's very important for me to come here because I find that there's a particular pace of life that I try to convey in the novels. The novels don't move at breakneck speed. There's a slowness, there's a sense of relaxation, there's a very particular atmosphere, and it's important that I should come back, I think, every so often. Indeed, I come every year, and remind myself of what it's like to be in this country. It's wonderful how up here you hear the sounds of the village down below, and particularly if we hear cattle bells. I don't know whether you've heard cattle bells. Yes, I can hear cattle bells. A lovely sound.
It's no coincidence that the introduction to the #1 Ladies Detective Agency reminds readers of the Danish author Karen Blixen's classic memoir, Out of Africa.
Karen Blixen's wonderful book, Out of Africa, starts with the resounding line, "I had a farm in Africa at the foot of the Ngong Hills." What a resonant, striking first line that is. And I found it very impressive, so impressive that I started the #1 Ladies Detective Agency with a similar line when I wrote, Maramaswi had a detective agency at the foot of Kali Hill. It's my little bow in the direction of Karen Blixen. She was so affected by Africa. And I think African countries can do that. They can change people, affect them in a very, very profound way. And I would hope that when people read the Maramaswi books, even if they don't know Africa, I would hope that they would be affected in some way by that spirit of Africa. I think the old Botswana values which Mara Matsui talks about really are the values that she saw in her father, the late Obed Ramatsui. And I think they were values of respect and courtesy principally, but with a certain communitarian feel, that you weren't selfish. I think those are important aspects of these old Botswana values.
Many readers have wondered how a man from Scotland can write so knowledgeably about the thoughts of a woman from Botswana. How much of it is based on the author's own personality and views?
No, I'm not Mara Matsui. Some people have said that I'm Mara Matsui, but I'm not Mara Matsui, definitely not. Mara Matsui is aspirational as far as I'm concerned. I'd like to be more like Mara Matsui, or indeed Mr. J.L.B. Matakuni, but I'm not. I mean, there are too many flaws in my character to be Mara Matsui. I think of her when I'm about to say something uncharitable. I think, what would Mara Matsui think of that? And usually it stops me.
After a few weeks travelling, Alexander McCall Smith has collected enough material for the 9th book, in a total of 11, in his series about Botswana's first female detective, her cases and her love for her home country. He also now knows how he is to start it.
I think we'll start with her going out into her garden. The books often start in that way. And she's got her cup of tea, and she's thinking about the importance of the first cup of tea and how the first cup of tea of the day differs from the second, third, fourth and fifth cup of tea. It pleased her to see these visitors who came to her country and seemed to fall head over heels in love with it. And why should they not do this? The world was a sad enough place, and it needed a few points of light, a few places in which people could find comfort. And if Botswana was one of these, then she was proud of that. If only more people knew, thought Mara Matsui. If only more people knew that there was more to Africa than all the problems they saw. They could love us too, as we love them.